Hello everybody, May the 4th be with you, happy Star Wars Day. I think it's just great how we have an entire day just to celebrate Star Wars. Like, how many movie franchises out there get their own holiday? Like, that's just so freaking cool. It's the one day a year where we can set aside our differences, set aside our opinions on Star Wars, and come together, at least for 24 hours until everybody starts hating each other's guts again. But today's a really exciting day and it's gonna be fun. So picture this, right? It's May of 2018. It's been 5 months after the most polarizing, most divisive Star Wars movie to ever come out has hit theaters. It's been not even half of a year. Those wounds are still fresh. People are still angry. They feel like Star Wars has ruined their childhood, ruined their characters, and they're never going back again. So enter this little side story that just happens to be about one of the most beloved Star Wars characters of all time, and it's safe to say we were all kind of nervous. Now, when I say that my expectations for this movie was really low, I mean, it was crazy. Like, I was one of those people that didn't really like The Last Jedi. I felt like they did a disservice to the characters. I felt like they didn't follow the roadmap that J.J. Abrams had lined out, at least for the first movie. And they just kind of went and did their own thing, and then that was that. And then they're making a movie about one of my, if not my favorite, Star Wars characters of all time. So yeah, I was a little concerned. But I love Star Wars. I love these characters. So yeah, I was there day one, of course. That being said, when I left the theater, I had an uncontrollable amount of joy. And I think that's because my expectations were so low and the movie didn't suck. It also didn't ruin everything that I knew and loved about Star Wars. Like, I thought it was a pretty solid movie when it first came out. I actually saw this movie 5 times in the theater when it came out. I took several different people to see it. Every single person had a different opinion. But I think after seeing it that first time, going back again and again, my expectations were in check. I knew what was going to happen, what to expect. And then I was able to just sit back and enjoy what the movie was going to provide for me. And each time, I liked it more and more. And yes, if you're wondering, this is Han Solo's jacket. Yes, I purchased it before I saw the movie. Before I even knew how I was going to feel about the movie, I went out and bought it. And I still wear it, and I still like it. And did I wear it to the premiere of the movie? You bet I did. Don't judge me. Okay, so starting off with the story, I don't really think that the story is anything amazing. I really enjoy this movie just because of how the movie made me feel throughout my time watching it. I go to movies to escape, and this movie really took me into that galaxy far, far away. Yes, it's a generic space adventure with a plot that we know kind of how it's going to turn out because it is a young Han Solo movie. So we know that he's gonna survive and everybody's gonna survive, so the stakes aren't really there, but it's really the atmosphere of the movie that makes it for me. Yeah, sure, the colors are either blue or brown, it's really dark, it's hard to see, but it still kind of feels like that Rogue One kind of dirty, dingy world where the Empire is taking over, everyone's depressed and sad and just trying to survive. I kind of like that aspect of it. But just like every film, there are things that I like, there are things that I didn't like, there are things that I really didn't like, but for the most part, it worked for me. Starting off with characters, I think that Alden Ehrenreich's portrayal of Han Solo was something that I was obviously concerned about because, like I said, Han Solo is one of, if not my favorite Star Wars character. And I think going into it, I already accepted the fact that he wasn't going to be as good as Harrison Ford, and that helped me out a lot. His portrayal to me didn't really feel like Han Solo until towards the end of the movie, which is cool because you see him grow over time. Like, my best example is this scene right here.
You happen to notice that freighter down there? You know what's on it? About 30 hired guns. All I gotta do is give them the signal, you're surrounded.
That scene makes me feel like that's the Han Solo that we know and love, and I think it helps because it's towards the end of the movie that I can take a leap and say that the entire film is just molding him into the Han Solo that we love. It's creating character growth for him. Obviously, the scene stealer is Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian. I think during that time of 2018, he was on cloud 9 because I think the This Is America video just came out a week before the movie came out. So the guy was doing some pretty awesome stuff during that time. I think he fully embodied the character of Lando. He's got the charm, the smoothness. He's got that swagger. Oh, I just said swagger. It's 2010 again, everybody. And just how he carries himself, I think is just so well done. Woody Harrelson's character is fine. He's serviceable. Paul Bettany, also okay. He's just your generic villain, doesn't really need to be there. I think he was only there because a month prior to this movie coming out, he got an Infinity Stone ripped out of his head, and he was just like, all right, well, I'll go do Star Wars now. As for Emilia Clarke, I think she's fine. The problem with her is that that Han Solo is not going to end up with her. And that's also kind of where this movie is like faulted at, because you know where Han Solo is going to end up, so it makes you sit back like, does this even matter? And also it kind of seems like in those scenes with her, he's not acting like Han Solo. He's more naive and a little bit more needy than he should be. Because like Han Solo would be like the kind of guy who swoons you over and then takes you out on the first date and then doesn't call you back. And to me, it feels like this guy would just bend over backwards for her. But again, young Han Solo, I get it. It's like, if I can see the red flags that she's given off, I don't know why he can't. And now we've come to the character that I just abhor for this entire film, and that is L3. Now, when K2SO in Rogue One was introduced, I feel like Star Wars was just like, yes, we can have a sarcastic robot and make him funny. They did that with him. They did that with L3. They also did it with C-3PO in The Rise of Skywalker. You could argue that they did that with R2-D2 through the entirety of the saga. But just like specifically having a robot that is desiring equal rights, I feel like it just takes me out of it. It takes me out of that escapism of this other world. And I get it. You know, droids have always been mistreated. They haven't been treated equally to humans or aliens or other species. It makes sense to have one droid that is a activist for that, or against that for that matter. But it felt like that was her only motivation, her only arc. And it just kind of got on my nerves after a while. I also really like how the movie handles its fan service, because it could do like, you know, the easiest cliche of things, but it actually handles things really well and gives some more weight to the other movies. That's the one thing I like about the two Star Wars Stories movies, is that they add something to the original trilogy. One of my biggest complaints in the original trilogy is how Lando would always refer to Han as Han, but then this movie gives you this scene.
Can I ask you a question, Captain Calrissian?
Anything, Han? It's Han, but that's okay.
And it shows that Han and Lando have history and that they're kind of rivals in that way. So now there's a reason for him to call him Han in the original trilogy, and we can look back and be like, oh, that's why he does it. And I think that was really smart on their part. I really like how Han met Chewie. For a scene like that, for those two characters to meet, that sort of scene makes sense. I also really like that scene where the Millennium Falcon's introduced. Like, it just, without fail, it always puts a smile on my face, because you get there, you see the scope of the ship, the music kicks in, and you just feel it. You feel that nostalgia. And you feel that Star Wars love that you felt when you were a kid. And this movie knows that. This movie knows how to play on your emotions and your nostalgia, and it does it very well. And then afterwards, we get the scene, like almost the scene that should not belong in a Han Solo movie, but I'm so glad it is. Like, when this scene starts, I saw the robotic legs and I was just kind of confused. I was like, what is this? And then I see the cloak and my mind starts piecing it together. And then he takes off his hood, and seeing Darth Maul was just insane. I went with a buddy of mine, and I swear we both immediately sucked the air of the entire room. Like, people that were sitting in front of us, they turned around, looked at us like we were crazy. It's like, you gotta understand, like, Darth Maul, that in that time, we felt like they were gonna make more movies and not like cancel them after 6 months of being announced. Like, we really thought that there was a possibility to see Darth Maul come back and kind of be the villain for maybe some of these Star Wars spin-off movies. Did he need to ignite his lightsaber? No. But it was awesome. And I still hope and pray that Disney eventually takes that story with Maul and takes it a little bit further, gives us more live-action Maul instead of animated. Don't get me wrong, Clone Wars Maul is insanely great, but I would like to see more live-action portrayal of him. Believe it or not, this movie is actually probably in my top 5 favorite Star Wars movies of all time. I know that's kind of insane, but for me, it's all about how a movie makes me feel. Like, if the story is not great, how does the movie make me feel? If the emotions are there and the story is great, then that's even better. But with this movie, I kind of had to take what I can get. And with Star Wars, it's so difficult because people have their own idea of what Star Wars should be. A lot of it's based on how Star Wars made them feel when they were younger. And if those expectations aren't met, then people will trash the movie. And I'm willing to bet that if this movie came out before The Last Jedi, I think it would have probably done better in the box office, because when you think about it, The Force Awakens was mostly liked by people. And then Rogue One came out after that, and I actually haven't heard anybody say that they didn't like Rogue One. So that film was successful, and I feel like if this came out maybe after Rogue One, I don't think it would have, because you already have the established story of the core third trilogy. But if it did, I feel like it would have probably done better at the box office because of the success of Rogue One and The Force Awakens. So yeah, The Last Jedi hurt this movie pretty good. I know this review is a little jumbled, but thank you so much for checking out this video. Seriously though, like, it's really awesome to have a day to celebrate Star Wars as a whole. And I feel like, you know, everybody's got their own preference. Everybody's got their own idea of what makes Star Wars great. And it's really hard to talk about Star Wars sometimes because everybody has their own opinion and a lot of it's going to be toxic. Like, if you don't agree with the masses of what people are saying, then you just suck as a human being. Like, I grew up in a time where if you loved the prequels, you were kind of a trash person. And now it's like the prequels are widely loved and supported. And I was like, it's weird. It's weird how everything's changing. And maybe one day the sequels will be loved for something that they did too. And the fact that, you know, these things can happen over time when people realize, like, once the hype dies down and they realize that there's actually something here, I think that they'll appreciate it more. So if you are that person who hasn't seen this movie since the theater, give this one a second watch and try and see it from that different perspective. The perspective of that they tried to tell a story about a character that we all love that didn't dishonor him or disservice him, and they just wanted to make a fun movie-going experience, and I think it deserves a lot more love. Well guys, that is it. I'm gonna get off my Solo a Star Wars Story soapbox. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. Happy Star Wars Day, and may the 4th be with you.